Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
And I'm here with the vet, Mr. Ian Griffin. What's up, man?
You know what? We forgot something. Let me hit it. Man, we're creeping into September here real quick. Like, can you believe
This
that?
year is gone by so fast. It's like Linda and I were talking about it driving back from the Rangers game yesterday about how it seems the older you get, the faster it gets. And I remember my dad saying something like that when I was a kid. He's like, boy, you better slow down because it's just going to speed up. And you know what? It is so true.
Well, wow. Speaking of Rangers games, wow, that takes me back, man, because I remember going to see my first Ranger game back what used to be the minor league stadium. And what was cool about this stadium, coach, is no matter where you sit, you felt like you was on the field on that stadium. We sat out in the outfield. I've sit behind third base. I've sit behind the home plate once. But even in the outfield, you felt like, man, I'm just right down there with the guys. And for me, I remember going there one time, and I've probably told this story once before. I was out of Fort Hood, Texas, and went to the Ranger game with a bunch of soldiers, and they were all Yankees fans. And my mom met me there, and we were playing the Yankees. And it was Palmeiro and Gonzalez on the team. And they were cussing up a storm because Gonzalez was wearing them out. And my mom goes there. She drives and meets me there, sits next to us. And you know my mom, she didn't know a stranger. She's talking to people that she taught in school. And I'm like, Mom, how do you know these people around here? You know? So anyway, that was a cool time. But that was a good stadium, Coach.
It really was. I remember going as a kid, and you was talking about your mom. I remember my mom taking me, and she always take me, and it seemed like a friend or two with us, or I'd take my cousins. My cousins lived in Irving, and so, you know, it was like we'd go by sometimes, pick them up, and head to the ballpark. But going to the old ballpark, it felt like you were just going to a bigger Pittsburgh, Little League park, but just bigger. Yep. You always felt like it was just part of the baseball feeling, and now going to some of the bigger parts, it just doesn't have the same feeling. And it going last night to the new Globe Life Park, it just didn't feel like baseball. And it's weird. Yes, they were playing baseball, but it's so big, it's so tall, it's so wide, and it was a beautiful night last night, Vet. And they literally had the roof closed. And then when we pulled up, just directly across the street is the ballpark at Arlington, which I loved watching games there. There was not a bad seat in that place. And I remember being at the very first Rangers playoff game that they played with the Yankees, and we sat out in left field in the 3-story, whatever it's called, and those were great seats. But this one, we sat out last night in section 203 out by the foul pole, and it felt like we were a million miles away. It was kind of like we were watching ants play, and it just didn't feel like baseball.
Wow. So I remember when the ballpark in Arlington was built, we moved from that minor league stadium, and this was like building a Coliseum. It was like the coolest thing ever. Nolan Ryan was pitching during that time. It was a highlight of the Rangers seemed like they were close to in it, but not in it, always. And but that was a beautiful stadium. Like you said, we used to sit, we got behind first base sometimes and third base, but we normally sit out in the right field home run porch because I had 4 kids. And when you go sit there, you could go sit there and go get the all-you-can-eat venue at the same place. It didn't cost you a lot. And you were just right there, and it was cool as heck. People were hitting, home runs or foul balls close by you, and you felt like you was part of the game. That was a gorgeous – and that stadium is not that old. It's maybe I guess it's 30 years old, maybe 25 years old.
Maybe 25, but it doesn't – that's one of the things I wanted to ask. Why did they build such a new stadium? I mean, another stadium only 20, 25 years later, and it's I don't understand it. It doesn't have that same baseball feel because the ballpark in Arlington actually it was a new stadium, but it made you feel like you were at an older stadium. And I've been to some stadiums around the country. I know you've been to more than I, but I went to the new Washington Stadium when I was up there one time, and it kind of felt like the ballpark at Arlington, and it felt like that's the new old stadium, was that kind of feel. But Globe Life Park, it actually felt like the first time that I walked into the Houston Astrodome, which it just felt so big and so wide, and it was, you know, a turf field, and it was just so airy that it's like, is this a football stadium? It just felt that big, kind of like the Superdome. And I don't really understand why we're doing it. Are we just doing it to pack people in? Are we doing it for the restaurant? Well, the food was last night. There wasn't that much to choose from. But like I said, I was a little bit disappointed that just a few years ago, you could go to the ballpark in Arlington. You felt like you were in an old stadium, even though it was new, and everybody was close, and they had this great baseball feeling. And now it's like you go to an event that's playing baseball.
So I'm speculating here is all I can do on this but I've heard though that the reason why they built the stadium is the August heat always takes the Rangers down, takes them out of the competition because August heat, nobody else plays there, I guess, you know, no visitors or whatever. But okay, I got that. So you retract the roof, but for those that don't know, if I understand right, this is all built in the entertainment complex. You have Jerry's World there, you have Six Flags there, you have the ballpark in Arlington, now you have Globe Life, and they're not going to tear the ballpark in Arlington down, from my understanding. So you have them all right there. You could park in one parking lot and go see all of them. When I was a soldier, actually, what me and the missus did was we parked in the parking lot on a Sunday, went to Six Flags all day, and then went to a baseball game at night. We were on the Jumbotron or whatever you want to call it with our heads like this, passed out in seventh inning stretch because we were worn out, man. But what would be cool is to see a football game, go to Six Flags, and go to and go to a Ranger game if I was 15, not at my age now, you know. So, but yeah. I don't know why though, Coach. And then the second thing I'll say is, how do you convince the people of Arlington to say, build me another stadium after you built one 20 years ago? Hey, we're just going to raise your taxes. Maybe that's why we have policies like we do, those urban areas. I don't know.
And another thing is, I do know this, that when we had a couple Christmases ago, Linda bought me Motley Crue tickets, and it was at Globe Life Park. It was Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, and Joan Jett, and that's where the actual concert was going to be. And they rescheduled, and then they rescheduled again. But of course, there was none of those. I mean, they would have country guys sing at the ballpark in Arlington, after the game and things. But I guess Globe Life Park is going to be more of, an event center where they do, more than just baseball, more than even concerts. Somebody said they're going to do a rodeo there at some point in time. So, it's just one of those things where, like look at AT&T Stadium. They don't just play football there. They don't just have the Cowboys. I mean, they have Big 12. They have high school playoffs. They have, motorcycle events. They have, I went to a Taylor Swift concert, took my daughter there one time. We sat so high up for $400 a ticket. We're watching ants for $800. And for $800, we got to see ants. But, I guess that's part of the deal. Billionaires make billionaire money.
Well, I think that's how they sell it to the city, is in order for them to build those venues is, hey, we can get, four-wheel drive vehicles in there and do mud contests. We can get concerts in there. We can get I don't know. AT&T Stadium even had Chris Kyle's funeral in there. You know what I'm saying? And which that shouldn't be an event that's like that makes money off of, and I don't think it was. I think they just did that out of respect. But they're going to where it's just no longer just your stadium or this team stadium. Although, like with AT&T, it has a star in the center, and that doesn't leave. But pretty much, I think that's the way that they see a resource there they can tax the Jolly Whittakers out of, and they can turn it by a bunch of other venues to bring revenue in the town is how I see it probably. So that's crazy. Right. And so one question I got, Coach, is I know Governor Abbott, he's discussed about, not imposing so much restrictions on COVID and all this other stuff, let people have the free choice. How was that there at Globe Life Stadium?
It's interesting you say that. We were talking about it today, Linda and I, that there were some people that were wearing masks. There is, of course, no mask mandate or anything. They were giving out masks if you wanted it. But we put a percentage on it. We were just having a discussion there. There was probably about 20% of the people that were wearing the mask there. There's no social distancing at a baseball or football game, or there's just not going to be. I don't know. There was never, actually, if you think about it, there was not even a feel that there was a pandemic. If you ask me, looking back on it last night, it just felt like a normal time at the ballpark with your family. And then there would be some people wearing the masks. I don't know if it's just because we're seeing so many more masks that now it's just becoming part of the attire for some. One of the things I will have to say, and I wanted to ask you this: did President Biden, did he actually ever do the sign an order or for the guys killed in Afghanistan for the flags to go half mast? Did he actually sign that?
I don't. So normally, what happens is it's just a release from the White House.
Right. I didn't mean. Yeah. Sorry.
So it's not a signature thing. It's an automatic release, and I'm quite sure he did because.
Yeah. I wanted to say this.
I believe he'll miss the ball on things, but he ain't missing that ball. Kind of like what people talked about going to Dover today. He went to Dover. He knew, he was smart enough to know that I needed definitely better show my butt up there. So.
Well, one of the good things, and I mean, every time I go to Dallas, you realize, by the car dealerships in Irving and some in downtown and even off I-30, you see those huge American flags. And that's one of the things when you're coming into the city, all that's been going on the last, 10 days or so with Afghanistan, you see those huge flags and they were halfway down. And I'm telling you, just kind of, if you're an American and this hasn't bothered you, I don't care about the politics and I don't want to get into politics, but the last week has been a sad time for our country. It's been a sad time for our military. And seeing those big flags blowing in the wind yesterday, because, the wind had picked up a little bit yesterday, and it just kind of made you stop for a minute. And last night, there was a lady that sang down the third baseline, and she's saying "America the Beautiful" at the seventh inning stretch. And it was hard for me to hold back tears. And, man, it's just even emotional me thinking about it now, just how amazing. I was just kind of looking around at everybody, and there was just a little bit more of a patriotic feel. I'm not saying it's 9/11 at the Super Bowl. Yeah. But there's just more of a patriotic feel of I think people kind of get a little bit more that, some people, died protecting us. It was pretty amazing.
So one thing I'll say, Coach, is if you ever get a chance, I don't know if you may have seen it, is a movie called Taking Chance. It's with Kevin Bacon in it. And he's an officer in the Marine Corps, and there's a guy that he doesn't even know him, but he's from his hometown, and he goes, "I'm going to take him home." And it shows the process that as they're taking Chance home to his family, it shows the process at Dover and everything else. It is so reverent, this movie is. It's probably one of the most reverent movies to our fallen comrades that you could ever get. And Kevin Bacon did a great job, but more importantly, they made a point to get it good and get it right. And so it's worth watching of what the process that goes through. What they do at Dover actually is, and a lot of people may not know this, and if you do, I do apologize, but at Dover, the body will come in, the family will get an opportunity to welcome and to dignified ceremony, receiving portion. But there, they will clean the body up completely down to the fingernails. They will put the uniform on the individual. They will take his records and go, he has all these ribbons here. He has all these medals here. And they will make the individual to be presentable to the family as best as they can. They give the highest honor they can. And so those people that work there, their dedication to their job is just freaking incredible. And then once it leaves there, the individual, there's an escort officer, and they will escort them to the hometown and to the family. And we call it a casualty assistance officer or a casualty notification. The notification is the one that comes to the house with the chaplain. And then you have the casualty assistance officer who will spend up to 6 months maybe making sure all their affairs have been taken care of properly out of the military and into the family accordingly. Make sure they got their insurance, make sure that they were buried properly and all these things. So it's a very moving, and it's kind of crazy. We moved from baseball to our fallen heroes, and but I agree with you. There's time for politics on all this, and there's a lot of finger pointing to be pointed for sure, definitely. But right now, it's probably more about those 13 families who will face a void that they can never replace, and it will hit them hard. And right now, they're probably just consumed in the process. that it's hit them, but it hasn't hit them as hard as it will as soon as that process slows down a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So anyway.
Well, there's a question that we always talk about in school when 9/11 comes up, and we'll be talking about that here in a couple of weeks again, is, our country is so divided politically, and there's so many issues that people are on different sides of. And I always ask my students, bringing them back to 9/11, how after 9/11, how the country came together, politicians came together. Would it take another 9/11 event? If there was one like that, would we come back together? And some say yes, some say no. I don't ever want there to be anything like that. This week, I have heard more people kind of, get away from politics completely. But, even some on both sides saying, some things should have been done different or whatever. But, I remember after 9/11, people talk about the Super Bowl and how, that was. But I remember the New York Yankees playing, and the FDNY hats were all over the place. And Rudy Giuliani was at the stadium. And that was awesome. And I hope we can get back there again, because there wasn't a person in the country that wasn't for New York at that time. And it just was where it happened. And, sometimes we forget. We really do, when we weren't supposed to.
Coach, I'll say this is the wife and I, we've watched over and over and read stories of these 13 individuals and read every facet of their stories or lives. And you think about this, one was 31 years old, and he had a family. I think after that, the highest age was 25 and the rest were 20. Most of them couldn't even drink a beer in our country. They had their whole lives ahead of them. My gosh. And they were young. They were vibrant. They were exciting to be around. And God knows I would love to take them to a baseball game right now. My gosh. I mean, after serving as long as I have, I call them kids, and they're not kids. These are adults by far. I call them kids because they're so young, but they're adults, and they're warriors, and it was stupid. And, it's not their fault. They gave everything they got, and it's just, my God, what is the families going to do come Christmas time, come 9/11, just a few weeks from now, Wow.
Well, and I know we're about to run out of time, and I do not want to get political on this. Maybe this is getting close to that political line, but I've just been so many things over the last couple of years that have been disheartening for me, with protests and with people that, no one deserves to be murdered. No one deserves to be beaten. No one, whatever. But we're talking about putting up murals. We're talking about putting up statues. We're talking about putting up streets for people that, were not the greatest of people and died a wrongful death. And I wish we would do this with these American heroes. And their streets need to be named after these guys. Their statues need to be put up for people like this. That, leadership has to make decisions that are tough. And sometimes, depending on the leader and depending on the situation, they think they're doing the right thing. And maybe at the time they are. But when people die because of your decision, that's something he's got to live with as the president. That's something that we have to live with as Americans. But you know what? These guys are true American heroes. They weren't doing anything wrong to have this happen. And some of the people that we put up on pedestals were doing some things they shouldn't have done and died a death they shouldn't have died. But the situation happened because of some bad decisions that were made. These guys were putting on a uniform, protecting us, protecting our country, protecting our allies, and lost their lives doing it. So I hope we don't forget as quick as we do other things.
Coach, I'll say this is you take any of the 13, their stories are incredible. They're vibrant. Take Sergeant Glee, her story. I love what I'm doing. The picture the day before, her holding an Afghan child. I love what I'm doing. You take another one. He sent home to his dad a picture of him helping a kid out in Afghanistan. So, all these things here, you're absolutely right. There should be statues of these guys for sure, and gals, because they're worth every bit of it. We do got to get, and I hope America takes time to appreciate America's pastime, which is baseball, but also appreciate what makes America great. And I will tell you what makes America great. is people like those 13 right there. And, you know, those families are going to have a rough time. And they're just going to have a rough time evolving. And it's not going to go away 2 years from now. It's not going to go away 5 years from now. My wife and I know a family. It's been over 10, 12 years. And every day she still has problems. It was a mother of a soldier that died. And we still stay in touch with her. And she says some days are worse than others, you know, and it's not going to fade away. That's unfortunate. Go ahead, Coach.
Oh, last thing I want to say is I agree with that. And I'm just like, we're talking about back to the Ranger Stadium in baseball. That is something that was a pastime. You know, when the seventh inning stretch happens and you sing the song about, you know, baseball and Cracker Jacks, and you think about Chevrolet and apple pies, and you just think about all the greatness of the country. The reason that we have the greatest country in the world is because we have the freedom to go to a game and sit around with other people that we have no idea about where they're going home to, what they have. But just for a time, just for a moment, just for a 3-hour period, everything that goes on in the world stops and everybody enjoys the crack of that bat, you know, the crowd going crazy when the ball's hit and everybody thinks it's going out, and it's always it seems like it's always fun, you know, 10 feet short, and the awe of the stadium, and everybody's together. And I just wish our country was more united, like a baseball game. You don't know each other. You don't have the same beliefs. You don't have the same religions, but for something you have in common, it's called baseball. And what we all have in common is the greatest country in the world. And we need to appreciate it like we used to appreciate that great game of baseball.
I agree, Coach. So from there, we got to kick it out of here. So from the coach
to the vet.
Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.